family at home
Okay.
with just abuse, verbal and physical abuse, which transcended into me going into care at 16 years old. So I entered care at 16 years old. I was, I believe, in the 10th grade, going into my junior year. And so that was like life changing for me,
Yeah.
being basically just detaching from everything that I grew up knowing, my brothers, my family, my mom, the house that, I kind of like been a part of and invested in.
Right.
So yeah, that was a interesting time, and it made me who I am today.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to really speak about it. So
Yeah.
I'm happy I can speak about it today.
I am too. I think that it's very courageous of you to step up to the plate and be willing to express your journey
Thank
because
you.
I truly believe that there's a young lady out there, there's a woman out there today who is watching your story and they're thinking, I'm really appreciative that she's speaking for me. You know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so for you to go into foster care at 16, that's not a small deal. That is a big deal. You know?
Yeah, it is.
How did it feel to have to start over in so many ways at the age of 16?
I mean, I feel like that was a kind of a skill that I learned how to
Wow.
start over.
Hmm.
You know, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, that it became one of my survival tactics of learning how to start over. Nonetheless, that's not something that I ever signed up for. I never wanted to genuinely have to continuously start over my life, or just start over with people and relationships. And so I'm a Virgo, so I'm super grounded and I love stable connections. And I really appreciate relationships. And so to have to start over and basically find a whole another support system it was scary. It was really scary. But it really just shaped me. It
Yeah,
shaped me to adapt to other people, to step outside of myself and see different perspectives, to learn different ways of communicating, and just being, just being, I think like when you start over so many times, you learn how to have conversations with just about anybody.
right.
So I would say that on a lighter note, that I can literally talk to anyone now,
Right.
but oh man, it was so difficult at a
Yeah,
young age to like take my whole life and start over at 16 and
right.
not know what's gonna happen next. Oh my goodness.
What are some of the key things that you look for now when you start over?
Huh. Walking in faith, moving here in California, I was starting over. That was another chapter in my life that I was like, all right, we're gonna do a blank canvas.
Hmm.
And I usually have a plan, but this time I didn't have a plan. And when I went into foster care, then I didn't really have a plan then. And just walking in faith and standing in my power and knowing that I'm divinely guided and I have people along the way that are going to continue to support me. And I don't know where these things come from, but I speak it into existence. And it's just been so divine for me, all of the connections that I've made up until this point. And so when I came here and I actually recorded a little bit of it, because I do YouTube and I plan to share that transition of me moving from Baltimore to California by myself, because if you make it out of Baltimore, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, when you say Baltimore to me, I just don't have enough information. And
Yeah.
I also got an opportunity to work with some young kids out of Baltimore. They were hands down the toughest young kids I had ever seen before. Everybody just had a very tough personality. From the way that they talk to the way that they give in terms of two-way communication. It was a
Absolutely.
really different environment than what I had seen before. Uh,
Yeah,
so absolutely. Now, did you have a beneficial experience in foster care?
absolutely. Coming into foster care and me just being so self-aware, I was like, wow, well, I'm in this thing now. I'm a part of the system. So I'm not a bad kid. And majority of the time, people have this illusion that kids that go into care, they're bad kids. And I wasn't a bad kid. I was a straight A student. I was always at the top of my class. I was a golden child.
Okay.
So for me to experience that, I was just like, why? Why is this happening to me? But throughout that time of being in care, I really leveraged my resources, and I had to advocate for myself now. And a lot of the times when youth go into care, they're scared. They don't know how to speak for themselves. They don't know how to leverage their resources. They don't know what's available to them. They don't know who they can trust. So all of these things are key factors on what the potential outcome may be once that child ages out of care. So because I knew how to talk to people, and because I had a sense of self, I used my mouth and I got what I wanted because I asked for it and I was interested and I was curious. And even when I couldn't get it, I would still go to the bat and I was just so determined that I wasn't going to live a low vibrational lifestyle. Just because I was coming from such a traumatizing household. So I knew that from here is only up. And I created that for myself.
Wow.
So, you know, when your social workers are not telling you, you know, what your what's the word? I can't talk.
Opportunities, resources.
What opportunities and what resources are available to you? You need to ask. You need to ask these questions. You cannot. And one thing about me, I was not going to allow my life to be in someone else's hands. And I had to take control of my life at a very young age by asking questions, by having those conversations, by seeing what's available. What do I have access to? What grants do I have access to? How do I sign up for college? How do I get scholarships? All of these things I had to learn, but I had to use my resources. So that's where building your interdependence pool comes in handy. And that's I actually taught a curriculum on that, and it is so important. So just being living proof of just that very skill is so important. With me just being in care alone. And I mean, even still, I'm still connected with a lot of folks that I've worked with, and they see me and they still congratulate me to this day. And it's just amazing just to kind of like step back and be like, wow.
Yeah.
You see me. You know where I've been.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that schools need to be more informed when it comes to youth potentially being in foster care? And I was going to say it's not like schools get the memo like, hey, this kid is in foster care, but I kind of felt like they did when I was in school.
It all depends on what school you're going to. I went to a Baltimore County school. I went to Parkville High, and I felt like nobody really knew that I was in care. A lot of my friends didn't know that I was in care. And then I also didn't want to be labeled as a kid that was in care, because that was just like, what's that? Like, you know, and being a young kid and being around children in general, they can be very harsh. And you just don't know what hardships people are going through. So for me, I felt like it was a very taboo thing. Nobody knew that I was in care. Nobody knew that I was experiencing such a traumatic life, you know, back at home. And school did become my outlet. So I don't think that that was anything. I feel like as far as like schools being aware about it, I feel like you have to create a good balance between the good and the bad. You don't want to overly expose, but you also want to acknowledge that it is a thing and there's assistance that needs to be met. So.
Right. So what would you say were some of your biggest successes as you graduated high school?
Well, graduating high school was a big success within itself.
That's right.
My mom, she disenrolled me out of high school. So I enrolled myself back in high school and I graduated. So
hold on.
Yeah.
You said that your mother disenrolled you out of high school.
She disenrolled me out of high school.
Now, is this your biological mother or your foster mother?
This is my biological mother.
How did she manage to do that?
She said she was going to homeschool me.
Okay.
But it was just another rock that I had to climb, even graduating. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I wanted to do bigger things in my life. So I'm like, well, I have to get my degree. So I re-enrolled myself back in high school.
Wow.
And then I graduated. And then some of my bigger success after that was actually enrolling in college and finishing. Mm-hmm. There's not many kids that are in here that actually go to college and finish. They're a part of the 1 to 3%, and I'm a part of that. So that's something to celebrate. Getting my degree in interior design and architecture, something that I'm super passionate about. I love design. As you see, I love art. I love plants,
right.
landscaping, building houses, and definitely traveling. I've become so well seasoned throughout my time of becoming a young woman until who I am today. So I got to study abroad. I went to Cuba, studied abroad there with my sociology group. And I got to go to Dubai at 20 years old. So that was cool because none of my peers or classmates that I was in college with, they weren't flying to Dubai. So that was big. What
was it like? What was it like when you went to these places? I mean, I've never been to Cuba or Dubai either. Can you give us any insight into the culture? What was it like when you went there?
Well, I'll start out with Dubai because that was my first international trip, so I kind of set the bar high.
Okay.
So that was awesome. Just culturally, and it was great because I kind of felt like a sense of family there. People were coming up to me, talking to me in their language because they thought that I was from there. Apparently, I look like the people in Dubai.
Right.
Class to Dubai, beautiful place. And then I went to Cuba, and Cuba is kind of like where I became into my spiritual awakening and, my soul purpose. And, it was great because I got to see people that look like me for the first time, other than, New York.
What was it that took place in Cuba that put you on this spiritual journey?
Well, Cuba is such an old place.
Okay.
And there's a lot of history there. Mm-hmm. And the people are so genuine. You can really feel the love when you walk through the streets. And that's something that I could feel like first day. Mm-hmm. And then seeing that people look like me, representation. Okay. Oh my gosh, you throw up the fist, they'll throw it back. You see Afro Latinos, they're everywhere. Wow. The blacker, the better. They loved us. Wow. And I traveled with a few fellow Black students, and my professor that was actually leading the trip, he was also Black as well. But that was just so powerful, just being able to stand in my power and be like, wow, I see you. And our politicians in Cuba, you guys were Black. Like, wow. Being able just to like gauge some of my history and just seeing myself and others and my ancestors in a different light. So that was really powerful. If you get the chance to go to Cuba, try to go before they change everything. It's definitely a spiritual place. And for me, there was this one museum that we went to. It was the African American Museum in Cuba, in Old Havana. Mm-hmm. And basically they did this show, and they had like the different elements come out, the sun, the water, and the women were dancing. And in that setting, I just broke down and cried. And I'm not a person that cries in public, but oh my gosh, when you hear the music and you hear the sound, that is energy, that's language. And for me, I was just like, my ancestors were talking to me, and I just broke down, bawling out, crying in front of my classmates and professors. And I was just like, wow, I got to change my life.
Yeah, wow. The whole experience, it meant something a little bit deeper than you than it might have meant to everybody else.
For sure. When you get
Yeah.
off the plane and you smell grandma's house in the airport, you already know what time it is.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to Carlita Orta. She has a very interesting story, and interesting because she's been in places where a lot of young people have been, and she's been places where they could only hope to go. We'll be right back with more from Carlita.